This is Cristina Dam, and this is Liberate the podcast, where we educate, motivate, inspire, and liberate your consciousness. So we have some of the most interesting, unique, and amazing meditations, I think, in the world. I mean, we have past life regression meditations, guided hypnosis meditations, Akashic record meditations, as well as healing meditations. Our meditations are pretty cool. And they're not just about stillness of mind and peace and sit there, I mean, we have those too. Don't get me wrong, but these are about meditations that are going to shift and change, and you're going to walk out of there feeling lighter, freer, healed, and even getting guidance and insight. So come down, experience one of our meditations. They're pretty badass. Hi there, welcome to another episode of Liberate the podcast. Today we're bringing back one of our very own practitioners that works not only at Liberate Emporium, but Liberate Hollywood. He does many different modalities, from hypnotherapy, past life regression, energy healing, tarot, and oracle reading. And so he's kind of really deep dived. I've known him for about a decade now myself personally. And so welcome, Jerome Ali.
Hello.
And so today's podcast is going to be, really understanding all of these amazing different healing modalities that Jerome does, as well as his journey of what led him into this healing path for others. And, if you love what you are hearing here and you want to know more information from Jerome, we have a podcast that we did maybe a couple years ago. It's in only audio, unfortunately, but it has some great information that really deep dives into the differences between all the different sixth sense. So Jerome, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
So do you want to share a little bit about yourself, and then let's go from there, because there might be people that don't know you or haven't listened to the other podcast.
Sure. Well, I am a practitioner at Liberate Hollywood and Liberate Emporium, as you've already stated, you've been filled in on. There's several modalities that I do, that I perform. I am one of the card readers, but I also do hypnotherapy. I've been doing that for, it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wow. It's funny how those things kind of don't always sink in until you actually hear it said. So I've been doing that for, I guess, a decade.
A decade.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Wow. So I've been doing that, and just kind of figuring my way through it. I mean, obviously, we went and got the education for it. It's the oldest, school for it in the United States, the first school for it in the United States, even. So we learned those tactics and those different elements that you need to be able to utilize when you're communicating with the subconscious mind. But even kind of going beyond that, you figure out different ways to apply those same lessons.
Yeah.
So that's something that think about it now, for the past 10 years, I guess I've been applying and finding different ways of being able to apply those things in different areas for different reasons, because the presenting issues, as we refer to it as, the clients will come in with, they vary.
Yeah.
They really vary. You never entirely know what it is that you're going to get until you're in that session, even if the person tells you ahead of time. You might have even dealt with that particular matter before, but the way that applies to that individual or that client, sometimes you just have to kind of figure out a new and inventive way to be able to actually address them in the way that they are capable of hearing and capable of receiving. And it's really interesting to see yourself growing over a decent amount of time.
Yeah.
In how it is that you are going to find yourself changing and even addressing presenting issues that you may have felt like you've covered before, perhaps with another client, and then you realize, oh wow, there's a whole nother approach that I didn't either take before or didn't even think of before. That's definitely something.
And what got you into even taking that leap and going to school for hypnotherapy?
Well, I did. Great question. Both of my parents are psychologists, and I had studied that in undergrad.
A very interesting household to grow up in. Now, what did you really mean about that? How does that make you feel?
Why did you think that this was a good idea?
What were you feeling at that time?
Right. I'm feeling like I don't want to be here. That's my stock answer, really. It was... I mean, it was great. It was fine in the sense that that's kind of all that I knew. Mm-hmm. You don't really know other households that, one grows up in because they tend to grow up in one household. So yeah, it was fine. And then I realized, later on, after I was a little older, I was like, oh yeah, no, that was different. I grew up a little different in some ways. Yeah. It was very informative and interesting. I mean, to the point where I studied it as well in undergrad. Mm-hmm. It definitely gave me some very interesting perspective and an appreciation for it. I think I know that there's a stigma out there. Mm-hmm. I know for various reasons about therapy or therapies. But what I find to be really interesting is that when people take the time to really kind of understand or to get more involved with what a particular modality is, once they have the opportunity to ask the question that they themselves have, I've yet to find somebody who is as opposed to it, even if they were originally. Yeah. Or it's like that just kind of melts away any kind of hesitation that they have.
Well, I mean, who can't work on their self, right?
Absolutely.
We all, no matter where you're at and at what stage of life and in what different areas, there's definitely an area of your life that always needs to be worked on, and it can change that area and you can kind of go around the wheel, but there's always going to be something, right?
Absolutely.
And so when we say that, like, why should there be shame or stigma about working on yourself to be a better you, right? And that's ultimately what people are doing. They're saying, I want to even be more miraculous. There might not even be an issue. It might not be like going and clearing out the past and saying you have all this childhood stuff that's unresolved. It could just be like, I want to feel better, be more confident, be more motivated. I want to have more, energy, feel more empowered, whatever the case may be. But like, you can become a better version of yourself too. It's not just about healing the past.
Yes, I would absolutely agree with that.
And so you studied psychology in undergrad, and then you said, okay, hypnotherapy school. I mean, where did that come from?
I think that psychology is an amazing field, and I thought that it brought a lot to the table, and that it does. However, there was a certain point where I realized I wasn't going to be the best cheerleader for that particular modality.
You've seen too much growing up.
Right.
Just teasing.
But no, it was, I mean, there are certain things that I knew that people need folks who are going to absolutely know solidly that this is what it is that they need or what it is that they want. And I realized at a certain point that I have a tremendous amount of respect for that particular field. I just wasn't going to be its best cheerleader. Mm-hmm. So I ended up not pursuing that. And I think that was the right choice for me. Yeah. I think it's an amazing field. I work with psychologists now, and we have some joint clients, and I think it's a fantastic modality. It's just something that I want it better for my clients than I felt I was going to actually give them in that particular position. So extremely parallel comes in hypnotherapy. Okay. But
where did you first hear about it? Did you take a session? I mean,
at the location, the school that I went to for this, which is where we met. Mm-hmm. They gave these free, kind of come in, see what it's about, have the illusion, kind of pushed to the side, and so we can actually answer your questions about it. And I ended up just going to one of those. My uncle told me about it, and I was like, Sure. By the way, I am a natural born skeptic. I really, really am. That doesn't mean I don't believe in things. It just means I'm going to have questions. I'm definitely going to have questions. So I went and I was like, well, let's see what this hypnotherapy is. I mean, my idea was like people barking like a dog or quacking like a duck or sleepwalking. Somebody doesn't know. It was just wild. When I look back on it, I'm like, yeah, what did I even think that it was? Anyway, holding the short is that I ended up going to this one session and I thought, oh, that's interesting. It was just like a free, community explanation of it at their location. And so I went and I thought, well, this is interesting. I don't know if this is all true, but it sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
And that was enough for me to continue to keep asking more questions. So what I did was I talked to both my parents. And it's funny because they both said the exact same thing. And they both have had their doctorates in this field in psychology for longer than I've even been alive. And I went to them and I kind of told them what it was that I had learned and what they were saying. And I was like, yeah, but they want to sell this. They want to sell their idea. Of course, they're going to make it sound like, oh, yeah, this is right. And then, but what do you think? What do you two think? And they lived like close to 3,000 miles apart. So I know there was not like a previous conversation that came up before I spoke to them, but they both like same exact words. They said, I can kind of see where hypnotherapy might work a little quicker and maybe even last a little bit longer than psychotherapy. And I was like, hold on.
This is a doctor.
Whistle, flag on the play. Stop. Wait a minute. Why? That's your area. That's your field. Why would you say that? Like, what? It made no sense to me. And both of them who said that, but both of them, they stated, well, look at it this way. Psychology is a cognitive therapy, meaning that it's a conscious therapy. You're dealing mostly with the conscious mind. Okay. Hypnotherapy is a subcognitive therapy modality. So you're dealing with the subconscious mind. The ratio there is that the subconscious mind is about 88% of the entire mind's capability. Okay. Whereas the conscious mind is actually more about 12%. The cognitive therapies are dealing with the conscious mind, which is 12%. Subcognitive therapies, such as hypnotherapy, are dealing with 88%. So this was their selling point, that if you can make a change,
and 88%
of somebody's, where they're going, where they're thinking, that's amazing. Like, you've changed their life. And I was like, okay, still skeptical, right? So I was like, okay, all right. So what you're saying is I can make positive change in people's lives if I were to do this. I said, well, yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to work hard at it and make sure that you're educating people about it and what to do, but you have to do it in a way that doesn't scare them. And I was like, okay, but I can make positive change in people's lives. And they said, absolutely. And I was like, okay, that's good enough for me. So I ended up going in a pretty parallel
no
field.
Looking back.
Yeah, just kept moving forward. 10 years later, wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And through that process, were there a lot of things that you worked on and changed in yourself through utilizing hypnosis from other people doing it on you?
Yeah, without a doubt. Shyness, to a certain degree. I sometimes just like, oh, I don't know. What if I do something wrong? But I think in the beginning, I probably had that a little bit more, just because I didn't have the history, being able to say, oh, I've been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
It was brand new. And I'm like, well, I want to do right by my clients. I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing. And I don't know, what if I mess it up? And I didn't mess it up. I didn't mess it up, but that was a concern. I'm very concerned about the experience of the client. So much so that I give a suggestibility questionnaire in the first session so that I understand how it is that they need to be addressed. When you deliver information or deliver news to somebody, sometimes it can be jarring, and sometimes they take it in stride, and it's fine. And we're all kind of tweaked a little bit differently. And what that questionnaire does is it allows me to understand how they're already predisposed to receive information. So I'm not tripping over any triggers or anything like that. I get to know that ahead of time. I don't think that it's the client's responsibility to have to come in and get used to my approach and get used to my style. of delivery as a professional, I think, and now I can say it as a professional of 10 years, but as a professional, I think that it's my responsibility to have to get used to their style.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that that's very important. I think that more people have a higher rate of benefit when they're able to do that, when they have that, when they have buy-in in their own process, but also when they see that somebody's meeting them. They met me at my location, in my office. Okay,
Yeah.
they came to Liberate Holly. They came to Liberate Emporium. Whichever of those places. So they've already come part of the way. I now need to. I believe that I need to then meet them part of the way as well. And that's where I do that, is by kind of getting a better sense of how it is that they're already predisposed to receive information. So I can then introduce the information or use some of the keywords that we're discussing in a way that they're already predisposed to absorb it.
Yeah, and if more people could do that in everyday life, right? You know, like communication, so many problems in relationships and parenting and coworkers, it's that, people feel that people need to constantly meet them where they're at instead of stepping in and saying, well, how does this person process and receive?
Absolutely.
And maybe they do things different. And most of the time when kids are really little, if somebody's around like a little kid, they'll automatically shift how they say things to make that child understand.
Absolutely.
And so it's a natural ability that we have, and it doesn't matter if it's your kid or somebody else's kid, but if they're doing something crazy, you'll say, oh no, don't do that. And if they're not listening, you try to change your approach and you try to come in a different way, and you try to maybe, be playful with them or try to give them a different metaphor to help them understand, or yell or do this or whatever, but you change everything until you're pretty confident that that child understood that thing is unsafe or that's not an appropriate way to behave or whatnot. But it's like in adult life and communicating with other adults, it's like so many people are so afraid to like, oh no, they have to understand me. I said it very clearly. Yeah, you might have said it very clearly for you,
right.
But it doesn't mean that they hear things like that. It doesn't mean that they perceive the world like that. It doesn't even mean that they computed what you said, right? Because
Absolutely.
we all have so many different meanings for different words, but it's also the way in which things are communicated, right?
Yeah.
And so
Absolutely.
that's I think important to note. So you do that with all of your clients and say, okay, how do I meet you so that we can make this more effective?
Absolutely. I think that I want to make it as enjoyable of an experience as possible. And the thing is, by and large, it pretty much is. I mean, just on its own anyway. But, sometimes we have some tough stuff we got to tackle.
Yeah.
All of us as individuals and even as a practitioner, I sometimes am trying to hold space for people that are working on very tough issues that are maybe even present or maybe even past issues. And I need to be in a place of where I am not holding a stance or using language that might have been at one point intimidating to them.
Yeah.
Maybe it reminds them of somebody else who said something. And I'm just talking, you know, and that's why I need to know where they are so I can meet them where they are, so I can reach them where they are, and step around any landmines that might, be lying around. I call them like emotional landmines, that sometimes they're there and other people in our lives don't always know that they're there, and occasionally we blow up on them, or that, sometimes they even step on them. We've all done that ourselves. Sometimes we do things to ourselves that just, we're like, why do I do this? Why do I continue to do it? And it's the most bizarre thing, but we can do that too. We can trigger those ourselves. And sometimes we need to know where those emotional landmines are and how to step around them, how to circumvent them, and how to not allow that to throw us off course for the rest of the day or the rest of the week or the rest of our life.
Yeah, absolutely. So you dive in there, you help shift this 88% of people's brains.
Yes.
And, what kind of things do you tend to work on?
Well, it's interesting because it's pretty varied. It's extremely varied. But I'll give you an example of of some of them.
Yeah, give it like because if people are hearing them, they're like, well, when would that work for me? Like, I want to hear this cool different thing that, actually let's backtrack a little bit. What is hypnosis?
Sure, absolutely.
Because we're talking you guys know what this experience is, but maybe you're like, okay, so I get that it's a little different than, psychotherapy, and I get that it affects this unconscious mind or subconscious mind, but what is it?
Great. Love it. Okay, so let's, because we're just talking about how, let's meet people where they are.
Yeah.
Okay. For anybody who's watching this right now, let's go ahead and meet you where you are. So try this. Take into consideration the amount of pressure that you're currently feeling on your feet from the shoes that you're wearing. Okay, the shoelaces. If you're wearing shoes right now, there might be a little tension there from the shoelaces. Okay, take that into consideration now. You were not aware of that before I just mentioned it. You were not thinking about that, But at the same time, as soon as I said it, it was something that you're able to just go right to. Now, the reason why that is because the subconscious mind had already logged that in. Mm-hmm. It had already had that sense. Same thing if you're leaning on your elbows right now, the pressure on the tips of your elbows, or if you're wearing earbuds listening to this, the pressure, the weight of those tiny, light little earbuds are putting on you weren't aware of any of that. But when I mentioned them, all of a sudden, yes, you were very aware of it. Your attention, your conscious mind went directly there, even though the subconscious mind had already logged that in. Okay, so that's basically a difference between the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. The conscious mind was focusing on this conversation and what it is, whatever monitor you're looking at, whether it's a phone or a screen from a TV or a computer. But that's what you were maybe consciously aware of, but
unconsciously, you forgot about everything else.
Absolutely. And it just kind of pushed it all to the side. So what we're doing in hypnosis is focusing more on the subconscious. Okay. And we do that by basically taking the association that we have with the things that are everyday, minor little aspects in our lives. Okay. How do we feel about that long traffic drive that's going all the way to work? And you might have just heard my little co-host over here, my little buddy.
I don't think you can see him, but he's there.
Yes, this is my lovely buddy Chewy, and he keeps me safe, and I love him very, very much for it. Thank you, buddy. So yeah, essentially, what we end up doing is we end up kind of trying to take people's subconscious mind, utilizing that and shifting certain associations that we have there. Okay. We might have certain associations with, say, a sore throat. If your throat's getting a little itchy and you think, oh man, I'm getting sick. And that's an association. If it just starts to itch and you think you're getting sick, sometimes we just don't feel good. We don't want to be sick. It's going to slow us down. We can't be productive. We can't go to work. We can't earn money. We can't do this. We can't do that. And that's our association with it. When, in all honesty, what if we were able to change that association? What if that little tickle or that itch was actually a precursor saying, if you don't watch it, soon you're going to get sick. So it's time to load up on water, maybe some vitamin C, and everybody's a little bit different. And so you have to kind of gauge that with the individual themselves. But what if that association of, oh man, my throat's getting itchy, I'm going to get sick. What if we're able to change that?
So what you're kind of saying is that you're reprogramming current belief systems and reactions that people have.
Without a doubt. Absolutely. This is one of the things that I think is really important, is for us to be able to understand that our associations, believe it or not, sometimes are not our own. Sometimes it's what we've thought, or what we've been taught, or what we've seen examples of, but they aren't necessarily our own. Being able to actually recognize when we have the ability to have that original thought or that original experience of who we are and what we do and how we work, how we react, knowing what those things are and being able to put that in something that is of use to us makes such a difference in how we go through life. It really, really makes a big difference in terms of how we are able to relate to others, how we're able to relate to ourselves, how we're able to take care of ourselves. Hypnosis is just hands down an amazing way of being able to change certain associations and certain habits that we've all had in our lives. And it might be that it no longer fits us.
And these things, like for everybody to know, it's not just changing like the way that you are with your throat. It can be changing how you react in the different anger or stress emotions that happen. It can be how you feel about different environments. It can be the experiences. It can be your shift of motivation. It can be letting go of habits and behaviors that don't serve you. Like I think like a lot of people know of smoking for habit change, like smoking, hypnosis for habit change, like quitting smoking and things like that, But I think what you're getting at is that it works so much deeper.
It really does. It really does. Let's say something that's really potentially damaging to the ego. Let's say there's somebody that you find to be really interesting and you find yourself really attracted to them. And you work up the courage to go ask that person out and they say, no. No. We're laughing now, but I know I certainly have gone through, that before that's happened. I do not have 100% success rate in asking people out, but I think it's really funny and interesting to think of because that could be really destroying. Or you could take into consideration, oh, maybe they have something going on. Mm-hmm. Maybe there is an attraction, but they're already with somebody else. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they are just absolutely getting ready to leave the country and don't want to start something new before they go because then they're going to be thinking about that person and then they'll just throw off their entire trip. That's something else I've found out through working with clients over the years as well. There's so many different angles to be able to look at that from, but to not have to say, oh my gosh, I can't believe that person said no when I asked them out. Oh, I must be horrible. You really get to sidestep that stuff. And the more of that stuff you can really just get past and not invest your own energy into. It's so much better. And we become so much better off by giving ourselves the benefit of the doubt. And sometimes the world at large won't. Yeah.
And so besides changing these, can we give some specific examples for people too? To say okay, I want to put it into even more context for them, mm-hmm. And these can be categories of shifts and changes and things that work on.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many to choose from. I've had a lot of students.
Because what I'm wanting people to realize that, you gave two very specific examples, right? Mm-hmm. But that can be broadened out into many different areas and arenas, Sure. And so that they can relate to how this is really helpful for everyone, and no matter what you're working on or working through or what you want to establish and change. Different type of aspect, but something that's related to hypnosis is NLP.
Sure.
And how Tony Robbins even became famous is doing one NLP technique called the fast phobia cure and changing and shifting people's phobias. And now now he's Tony Robbins, but he uses a lot of that, but it's about, can be instilling things into people too.
Absolutely.
So I just want you to, share a few different categories and stuff.
Sure. Okay. Well, I've had a lot of students come in, usually around either midterms or finals or something like that. And they want a lot of help with focus. I want to focus. I want to study longer, or I want to study for the same amount of time, but more intently. Okay. How to kind of like focus and really, really get it and absorb it and retain it. That's a big one. Okay. Sometimes people have come in. Oh, this is one of my favorites, actually. There was somebody who was sent to me by a chiropractor. This woman had been going in and getting the adjustment, the back adjustment. She'd been in an accident. This was, wow, it's maybe like seven or 8 years ago. She was getting the adjustment and kept losing the adjustment maybe like 2-3 days after after she went in to get her back worked on. And so the chiropractor basically talked to me first and said, do you think you might be able to work on something else? I would be happy to speak to the person. I don't know what we could do. But anyway, we spoke. I just had a consultation. Sometimes I'll just do that because I want people to understand what the modality is, what hypnotherapy is. She ended up coming in. And so we talked and we ended up doing this one session. And what came out of it was absolutely amazing because we realized that she was doing something that she hadn't realized was problematic and that we had to go into the subconscious mind about it. And what that was is that she had been told, by her mom growing up, listen, you live in a world that's controlled. It's run by men. They're not going to give you a choice and opportunity. You're going to have to make sure that you don't show any weaknesses. If you're hurt, just get right back up, dust yourself, to just go back into it. And so this was one of the rules that she had followed and it applied to her life. So she had, I forget how she had hurt her back. It might have been a car accident or something, but she had hurt her back legitimately. And she just would get the adjustment and then go right back to doing everything that she had been doing before she was hurt, at just full steam ahead, not giving herself, her physical body,
time
the opportunity
to
to heal and to take that adjustment. And so she kept losing the adjustment in a period of about 2 or 3 days. Through the work that we did through hypnosis, we came to realize that and understand that. And she was able to get that message, but also to get it in a way that she was able to understand it. And this, again, is why I feel it's so important to be able to bring the information in a way, to present the information in a way that somebody's already predisposed to receive it.
Gotcha.
Because she was able to understand how she came to that understanding of, I just need to go back out there, keep doing it 100%, no breaks, and how she came to learn that and apply that. But then she also realized the value in why it's okay for her to supersede that long-standing lesson that she had learned. Because she is an adult now. She can make her own decisions now, and she can take care of herself. She doesn't need somebody to take care of her.
Yeah, and she doesn't need that program anymore.
She doesn't need that program. And it was absolutely marvelous.
So it's like going in there and ripping it out and saying no more.
Yeah, just saying that you don't need this. This is weighing you down.
It's like silly.
I get it. You're absolutely right. That is something that people sometimes will just kind of carry around with them. Like, how many times do you have? All of us have bags now, right? I mean, we're kind of like carrying things around because we have our laptops and other stuff. How many times do you find like an old receipt in there that you're just like, why do I still have this? Or I don't know, just something you don't need. A pen that has literally gone dry, but you still have it.
Or,
okay.
Yeah, I just cleaned out my bag today and it was like all these crumbs and things and paper clips and half broken pens. And I was like, why? Shake it out.
Exactly. The crumbs get into other things. They might kind of get on the paper or something like that. But the thing is, when we clear that out, it's actually less weight. And there are less things for us to have to deal with. Later on. And so, this woman, like, she realized that I didn't have to, well, she didn't, but her from her point of view, she was saying that I didn't know that I didn't have to still think that way. It just never occurred to me that I never had to think that way, that's how I was taught. And I see that there's value in that lesson, but I see it in a way where I can make it work better for me now. I do need to allow my physical body to heal. I can still have that mental lesson, and I hold that with me. And I think that there's accuracy in it. And frankly, I think personally, I think that there's accuracy in that as well. But she was able to really create the distinction between old lessons and more valuable lessons. And she was able to choose, and being able to provide that choice to somebody, I still feel like is magic.
Yeah, because so many people don't even think. They don't even try to like examine where that's coming from or realize if they are examining where that's coming from, that they can choose different, right?
Yeah.
That there's always, it's kind of like that psychological aspect where you can give people two choices, pick A, pick B, and most people will feel that they have to pick A or B. There's a million other choices.
Exactly.
You can pick D, C, F, you can pick
Q.
2020, 2022, there's not just these two aspects, but a lot of times people feel, because they're so conditioned, that this is my only option, right? Yeah. And to be able to have that experience of saying, well, one, this is why this is this way, and this is what you felt this was your option. But you know what? There's these options too,
Absolutely.
Or this option, and which one do you really want? Because you don't have to live that pattern. You're not the same person looking through the eyes like a little kid anymore. You're not living that life. You're not even the same person you were yesterday, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so giving that people that ability to shift, to grow, to empower. And so it sounds like, from some of the things that you shared, is that, you can really help people like with changing certain habits, getting people into a state to retain or to achieve more in their life. You can change people's belief systems and help them kind of overcome and realize that they have freedom in their life and they're not held down by their past. And then another thing that you touched on was building people's confidence in that dynamic of showcasing that there are different perspectives to take into consideration, that you don't have to automatically say, oh, there's something wrong with me because I was rejected. Yeah. But, right. But there's more, and there can be these different angles. And even if they didn't like me, maybe there's something wrong with, them, or maybe I'm just not their type. It doesn't matter, right? Doesn't matter. Just like not everybody is our type, right? And it doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It doesn't mean they're horrible, but it's interesting what goes on in our thought process when we feel that we want something and we're not met with that in all of the story that we create. Yes. So it's like this hypnosis and this working with people can help kind of change that narration.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I really like what you're hitting on there. And you mentioned that you don't have to choose A, you don't have to choose B. They're like all these other options out there. And one of my favorite applications of that was, and people change their names sometimes, but if you remember Prince, the musician, that's the name that we came to know him as.
Yep.
At some point, he decided it's time for a name change. Reinventing, I need a name change. So people are like, okay, what's that going to be? Is it going to be Prince with something else on there? Is he going for something else entirely different? He didn't even go for it. He went for it was a symbol. They weren't even letters. They weren't coherent letters. It was just a symbol. And so many people sometimes are just wanting to be understood, wanting to people to know who it is that they are, like on a subconscious level. And what I thought was like so brilliant about that particular move is that, so he's this symbol. People aren't sure. So what do we call that symbol? What do we call it? Do we still call him Prince? And we kind of got into this collective understanding, the artist formerly known as Prince, which is much wordier and cumbersome and just flat out longer. But the fact that he didn't choose A or B, he went with a nonsensical symbol. If you look at it the right way, you can still see it kind of still spells out Prince a little bit if you look at different sections of it. But if you look at that, you come to realize like, you
don't even need something that has a vibration.
Yeah. And people are so interested. I mean, I remember just how people were so drawn in. How do you pronounce that? How do you say it? What do you call that? It created all this stir just because he just chose door number 3. I love that application of it. And when you said that, it made me think of that. You inspired that that memory. So
that's great. And I think that resonates with people. It's realizing we always have choices.
Absolutely.
We have so many options and we can change. And I think that that's what you're seeing and what was said to you by both of your parents is, you can instill change in people. Yeah. You can make a difference in their lives. And by going in and dealing with this massive majority aspect of how they perceive and are in the world and giving that power to shift that in a small way or a big way, allows for massive change, right? I mean,
Yeah.
change your angles, go from sitting down in a chair to standing up, and the room looks different, right? Get on your hands and knees, and it's going to look even different,
Yeah.
right? And so, and that's just you changing your height. Imagine changing something even just slightly in your brain, and that's what you do for people.
Absolutely, absolutely, and kind of helping them to do it in a way that they can continue to do it on their own. I mean, I make no bones about it. I'm not always going to be there with them, so I'm actually helping them figure out how to do that themselves. I want them to become their own best cheerleader, and I want them to become their own best caretaker, because they are the only person who is 100% of the time going to be present when something goes down and it needs to be managed. They're the only ones. And so when we start to realize we can rely on ourselves, I think it makes us much more powerful individuals.
Yeah.
We get to make much more significant changes in our own lives, and hopefully even being just better stewards for those that are sharing this planet with us, and that which is sharing this planet with us. When we are in a better place, I think we tend to be better. When we know to do better, we do better.
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful. Well, Jerome, it's been a pleasure. Where can people find you?
Well, they can find me at Liberate Emporium or Liberate Hollywood. And at Liberate Emporium is actually in Los Feliz. The neighborhood is Los Feliz. The city is Los Angeles, California. And also in Hollywood, where Liberate Hollywood, if you weren't quite putting those two together. But that's where Liberate Hollywood is located. And so I can be found there as well.
Now, in hypnosis works really great for remote sessions, Skype sessions.
This is very true.
And do you do some of those as well?
I do. I do Skype sessions, remote. So tech might not be Skype, but it might be FaceTime even or something.
Yeah, our audience is growing. And so I just want you to know, if you're not in this area, if you're not even in this city, it doesn't mean that you can't tap into some of the healers and practitioners that are displayed here, especially Jerome, and hypnotherapy works really well with that.
Absolutely.
And,
it's really been, and not every modality does that, but it does, and some of them are good in other areas, too, absolutely. But the kind of telecommunication, I guess, is the older term, but like Skype, FaceTime, it's really pretty successful. I've been liking the numbers that have been coming back from people's success rate in doing those things from a distance.
And sometimes it can even be more like with the comfort of the own home, and you can put in some earbuds and listen. And if you drift off and go into that deep state of relaxation, just get called back after, and you're good. You know. If you had to leave everybody with one thing, what would it be?
Ooh. If I had to leave everybody with one thing, I think I would leave them with themselves.
Ooh.
I think that I would leave them with themselves, because I know there are a lot of things going on in the world. I hear it from every client. I even feel it to a certain extent myself. We can't all change the world. We can change ourselves. We can change ourselves. And when I think that we have a better understanding that we are all doing the best we can, or that we feel like that we can, when we realize that, I think that we tend to be a little more kind to ourselves.
Yeah.
When we're a little more kind to ourselves, I think that tends to wash off on our community at large, who we relate to and communicate with. So if I were to leave everybody with one thing, I would definitely say themselves.
Beautiful. And causing the ripple effect.
Yes.
Love Indeed. It. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on. This was fantastic. I appreciate it, and I've missed it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this conversation, like it, subscribe, and share it with your friends. If you want some more amazing resources on your path of liberation, head over to liberateyourself.com and sign up for our mailing list. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram at Liberate Hollywood, all one word, or Liberate Emporium, all one word. Until next time, liberate yourself.
If you're thinking that you want to take that action step, why wait? Book your session right now. Go to liberateyourself.com, click on either Liberate Hollywood or Liberate Emporium, see our amazing practitioners and who resonates most with you. And then book a session via Skype, phone, or in person. We're here for you, and it's your time to start creating your life.